Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. This card uses very minimal supplies. I've got several distress markers, and then I'm going to pull the Happy from the Happy and Smile set and the Birthday from the Baby Party Animal set, both by Simon Says Stamp. What you want is just the word Happy and the word Birthday in different lettering. I have a piece of watercolor paper here. It's Strathmore 90 pound. And I'm marking about 7/8, maybe just short of an inch from all sides. And this is going to form the outside border of the blocks that I'm going to draw. I'm just making tiny pencil marks. Next, I'm going to mark the middle, which is 2 1/8, because this is a standard 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I'll take my sentiment and I'll put the Happy above the midpoint and the Birthday below the midpoint. And I'm going to move them so that they're not straight under each other. And then I'm going to mark the left of the Happy and the right of the Happy because I want to make sure that that is in one complete block. I'll mark the left of the Birthday and the right of the Birthday to make sure that that gets stamped on one complete block. So I'm going to have 6 blocks all together, and I'm just making very tiny marks so that you won't see them in the finished card. So I'm using my outside marks and the marks around the sentiment to create blocks. And I'm just going to draw this with a distress marker. This is Sealess Preserves. Once I get the outline drawn, I'm just going to come in a little bit with the color. I'm being really scribbly, especially with the Sealess Preserves, because that one tends to show marker lines more than the other colors for some reason. I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to start pulling the color toward the middle of the block. And you want to use a paintbrush that has a square edge. You don't want to use a rounded off paintbrush because you want to get into the corners of the block and keep them nice and crisp and straight. So you're going to take your water and you're going to push it to the very, very edge of the marker line and then just pull it toward the middle. So you can pull as much as you want or as little as you want. You can wipe it off with a tissue. I kept mine fairly dark, so I pulled most of the color toward the middle of the block, but what you're going to end up with is a really pretty watercolor outline around this block. So I'm just going around all 4 sides and making sure that I get water all over every single area of this rectangle. It's really important that you let each of these blocks dry before you start painting next to it. So I've got another rectangle that I'm going to do in the same color, Sealess Preserves, in the lower right hand corner. So again, I'm following my little pencil marks. If you wanted to, you can certainly make longer pencil marks or darker pencil marks. You can even use some masking tape or some Post-its to guide you, whatever you really want to do. So here I am doing it the same exact thing. I'm going to draw around the outside. I'll take my paintbrush and I'm going to push the water all the way to the edge and bring it to the middle of the block. After doing that second one, I needed to let this dry because I need to work next to these blocks. So it is thoroughly dry at this point. I'm going to take my next marker, which is Peacock Feathers, and I'm going to draw on the top of this one purple one. And again, I'm following my guide, and when I went to draw the next line, I actually could not see the pencil mark I made. It wasn't long enough. So I just took a ruler, and I'm going to just make a dot with my peacock feathers so I know where I need to put this line. But I wanted all the lines to look hand-drawn. I wanted this to look like a hand-drawn painting. I didn't want to have straight lines with a ruler or anything like that, which is why I didn't use masking tape to kind of guide the outside of these borders. So anyway, I'm going to do the same exact thing here with the peacock feathers, and this color blends really, really well, so I didn't have to worry about marker lines or anything like that. So I just put a heavy coat on the edge and then I pulled it in with my paintbrush. Okay, so again, I'm going to have to let this dry, and I'm going to come back in after it's dry with Twisted Citron. I chose the lightest colors for the blocks that were going to hold the sentiments. So when I'm drawing these lines, I'm kind of coming close to the next block, but I'm leaving a little bit of white here and there, so it kind of looks like these blocks are stacked up. So I'm not overlapping them at all. So the Twisted Citron is a pretty light color, so I'm going to do a heavy stripe around the edge, and then I'm going to take my water and pull it in. When I was all finished, I decided I wanted it to be just a tiny bit darker. So I'm just going to add a little bit more color by coloring on my craft mat with my marker, and then I'll just pull it up with my paintbrush. And this is also a good way, if you still see marker lines, to get rid of those marker lines. Just draw some of your color onto your craft mat and pick it up with your paintbrush and cover the areas where you see a marker line or you want things to be a little bit darker. Again, I let that dry, and of course you could heat it with a heat tool if you want, but I like to avoid paper warping as much as I can. My last marker is Shaded Lilac, again a lighter one because I wanted to put the sentiment inside, and I'm just going to color this just like I did the other ones, and the Shaded Lilac actually blends really nicely. So I'm going to pull that color out to the middle of the rectangle, and I didn't need any extra color here. I wanted to keep this one pretty light. And I like the way all 4 of these colors work together. So here is the final product. You can see how there's a really nice edge on all of these blocks. So I'm going to use my Misty to line up my sentiment. So I'm going to take my Happy and I'm going to ink it up with some Ranger Archival ink because it's a really dark black ink and it dries quickly. So I'm going to stamp this on the top and the Twisted Citron, and then I'm going to take my birthday stamp and I'm going to stamp that in the lilac. So they're going to be a little off from each other, so they're not directly on top of one another. I didn't want to add too much more to this card because I really like the way it's simple, and I like the blocks. I want them to be the focal point. So I'm just going to add a little bit of black splatter with my Gonzai Tombi black palette. And I'm going to wipe the brush off to make sure I don't have any excess water on it that might drop and cause a big water droplet, because distress markers react really well with water, so that would be disastrous, I think. Anyway, so I just tapped it a little bit and got some black splatters. You can see it's not too heavy, they're pretty light, just something really subtle. And then I went ahead and I trimmed that out about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 on each side, so that I could have a mat. And I'm going to use a Hero Arts black note card, and I'm just going to use my ATG tape runner to put some tape on the back, and then I'm going to center it on my note card. And that is the card for today. So something really unique and different. You can do all kinds of shapes, any shapes you want. I like the freehand aspect of it because it looks like it's an actual work of art. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.